Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to setamoon.com. I'm Joe Dumond, and as usual, I start off by telling you how much you've already missed by just joining us for the recorded sessions or just joining us now. We've had, can I say, very sultry singing. I'm hoping that Nancy is sick from now on every time she sings. It was beautiful. And I love it when the pollen trees are raining down this green mist. I just go out and dance and I love it. But then I'm not allergic to it like some of y'all. But Nancy did a great job. And I also want to thank Sombra for teaching us the opening prayers and for shaming us when she does. And I put a note out here to Randy that we are going to get the men to stand up and start doing the Aaronic blessing. And that includes me. My Hebrew is terrible, and I'm embarrassed by how little Hebrew I can speak. I took it for a whole year. I took Hebrew lessons for, what was it, an hour and a half every day? No, once a week. And each week I panicked that I wouldn't be able to remember what she taught me last week. And I still struggle with Hebrew. But what you're doing, Sombra, is you're helping. And I appreciate that. I really do. I'm learning those prayers. And the Jufran, I can never say their last name, Julfran family for singing the counting of the Omer each week as we do this. I appreciate that. Again, it's like being in a kitchen back in Newfoundland. Just the front kitchen, we're all getting together, we're having a talk, we're singing. It's not rehearsed, it's not spick and span perfect. It's not an orchestrated thing. This is a get together where we get together and we learn Torah. So things go unrehearsed and they're not always planned, sometimes never planned. Today, Kurt, before I forget, would you do the opening prayer, please, sir?
I'd be honored, Joe. Jehovah, Father, Creator, Giver of life, and King of the universe, we give thanks to you for all the blessings that you pour out on us and the gifts. We thank you for today, your Sabbath day, the 49th day of counting the Omer. Thank you for giving us the knowledge and the understanding that we can understand, recognize that this is the 49th day. We ask for your inspiration on this service, that you may inspire us to do your will, and that you would show us your will, Father. Give us peace, give us shalom, as this time is very, very, it's difficult for us, Father. We just ask that you give us peace, give us wisdom, help us to make wise decisions, help us to discern, give us a mind, a heart that can discern the truth from lies, and that we make wise decisions. And we place this into your hands now and ask your blessing upon it and all those who are present in your name, the name of Jehovah, may be blessed forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kurt. So we've done the counting of the Omer, and we do that offline before we start, but I'm going to do it again here today. And we've been putting them in our newsletter each week. And in the newsletter, we count both ways. There's two ways of counting. And it was a great thing to see there last week. A couple of you guys were discussing that you're counting it wrong and arguing over which way is right. So in the newsletter, we've always done it both ways to clear up any misunderstandings that there can be. So today, Shabbat, April 17th, 2021. Today is the 7th day of the 7th week of 7 weeks. Today is the 49th day of the counting of 50 days from the day of the waving of the Omer on the morrow after the Sabbath. today is the seventh Sabbath of 7 Sabbaths. Today completes the 7th week of 7 weeks of counting of the Omer. And, that is such an amazing thing to be able to say that, and to say that here with all of you. Because I know what I wrestled with back in, was it January? When I first got told that I might need to get ready for a surprise. I said, no way. There's no way we can be ahead of everybody last year and again this year. We need to have an 8-hour bet this year. An 8-hour bet, if you don't know, is to add a 13th month to the calendar year so that we are in sync with everybody else. No, it's so that we are in sync with Jehovah and his seasons in Israel. And oh man, I wrestled. I looked at the evidence, and I see that Becca's joined us again today. We was not planned, and I don't know if she's got anything to say, but I'll ask her in a moment. But I did not plan for this year to be this early. I expect us to be in cooperation and with everyone else. And so I checked the evidence that I saw in Israel really hard. Now, I wasn't there, I couldn't be there, but I checked, as I've done every year, I check what people present. I listen to the people and what they say. Even those who deny that this is the start of the year, admitted to the state of the barley. Whether they knew it or not, they were still confessing the truth. But their methods of determining when the year begins is part of their problem. But the barley was right. So our first witness was to have ripe barley that you could harvest without it falling to the ground and without it shattering, and you could roast it if you had to, and you can make that wave offering. And most people say that and then forget all about it as soon as they turn the corner. Green ears, you cannot harvest barley when it's brown, because by the time you cut it and stack it and put it in stokes and take it to the barn, throw it up in the wagon, take it to the barn, take it off the wagon and throw it on the ground, the barley is shattered and you've lost your crop. City slickers don't get that. It's not like going to buy a loaf of bread on the shelf. You have to harvest it when it's green so you can cut it, throw it on a sheaf, throw it in a stoke, throw it on the wagon, throw it off the wagon, and by the time you're ready to thresh it, it's still there. If it's still green, you can roast it. There's a lot of rough handling that the barley has to go through. So our first witness came at Shavuot, or not Shavuot, at Wave Sheaf Day, and the barley was ready and harvestable, and you put it there overnight and it hardened up, it turned into something that you can make in the flour. Unbelievable. At the end of February, the 1st of March, we kept Wave Sheaf Day. Okay, so I had to go back and check the ancient records I have of these tombstones, and yeah, they were doing it too. And I couldn't believe it. And yet it was right there in front of me all this time. So we had a lot of people denying that we were right and calling us all different names. And, I refused to get into the fight. I said, here's the evidence, you decide. You have to stand before Jehovah by yourself. You have to stand there with fear and trembling. Did you ignore his signs, or did you follow his lead? His lead, not Joe Dumond, not Becca, not Nehemiah Gordon, not someone in Israel. You followed Jehovah's lead. That's the question y'all got to ask, and y'all got to answer. So then I put it to Becca, well, we're going to have a second witness? Are we going to have wheat ready by Wayfield Day? Because, like, what, 2 weeks ago, it was kind of like, I don't know. It's still just coming out of the boot. But then it started going. And I seen pictures this week that they brought tears to my eyes. We have a second witness. We have two witnesses as to when the holy days are this year. Woohoo, woohoo, right now, woohoo. Are we right? Like, I'm looking out the window here and the trees are just starting to bud. The oak trees are still kind of reddish. They're not budding yet, but the other trees are green. The leaves are just coming out. Everything's in flower here. The rhododendrons are out. The forsythia are out. But in my old understanding, that was Passover time. But I'm in Canada. They just had 2 feet of snow in Saskatchewan last week or something like that. I don't know why anyone lives there in the first place, but they did. Our second witness is not the wheat. Our second witness is Jehovah, showing us again that we are to keep Shavuot at this time, at the start, so that we can offer the first fruits. The first fruits, not the first fruits that you were able to gather, but the first fruits from the land of Israel. So those people who went out and kept Passover, 3 weeks ago? Is it 3 weeks ago now they kept Passover? Where's the barley? Respectfully, I'm not laughing at you. I understand. This is something we all got to learn. Where's the barley that you were to make on Wave Sheaf Day 3 weeks ago? It wasn't the first fruits that it was the last. Because right now the wheat is already ready. So if you're counting, you got another month and a half to go to get to your Shavuot. What first fruits will you be offering then? It won't be the first fruits of the wheat. And just so that you know, there are still people who are keeping Passover. Is it the end of this month or next month? They're keeping Passover. And then they got to count from there 50 days to Shavuot. 3 different calendars kept by people who all claim to be following Jehovah and reading his Torah. And some of them are more, what's the word? Hebraic-minded, Torah-speaking, Jewish-looking wannabes than I am. And yet they're still keeping Passover next month because they go by the equinox. And it's the first crescent moon after the equinox. Where in bloody hell is the equinox mentioned in the Bible? You're following man-made hakanot. There's my Hebrew for today, hakanot. Man-made hakanot about the equinox. You're following man-made hakanot by having to have whole fields full of barley or whole fields full of. It doesn't say that. It says green ears. That's not a hakanot. That's a Torah, Jehovah commandment. I am privileged to have figured out, or not to have been called. I didn't figure it out. I was not that smart. I was called and shown about the Sabbath. I was called and shown about the holy days. This is going back 1982. I was dumbstruck. How can I be so ignorant? And then in 2005, I learned that God had a name. How could I be so stupid? At the same time, I learned he had a name. I learned that we go by the crescent moon. At the same time, we go by the crescent moon. I also learned about all in the same year, 2005. How could we have been so ignorant and remain? And then I told my pastors about it. We're going to have to change the name from the Worldwide Church of God to the Worldwide Church of Yahweh. And I got a stack of papers like this telling us why we don't need to pronounce the name. And I got taken off the recommendations for deacon to watch this guy. You were about to throw him out. Best thing that ever happened to me. Because I had to go and prove everything that I now know, which is sort of why you guys are listening to me, because I've proved it. I've proven it. I proved it. My improper, poor grammatically English. And yes, I spell the same way I talk. So you know that. I had to prove everything. I had to prove it as if I was going to a court of law, because I was going to a court of law. And if you haven't proven it, then you're going to go to that same court of law, but you won't have your ducks all lined up. You need to prove it. And if you can prove it, which is why you're here, you're not here to follow me, but if you can prove it, then each of you can now teach. Each of you can set up your own website and start to teach, because you can prove it. And you got to be able to take all the naysayers who come against you, because they will, and you got to be able to take them and understand that they're just ignorant dumbasses, that they just don't know. And you got to be able to try and explain it to them and understand that most of them won't listen, but some of them will. And you're looking for those ones that will. And when you do explain it to them, you got to be able to explain it to them as if you're in front of a court of law and they're the jury. And you're going to go through a whole period, a whole time of self-doubt and insecurity, thinking that you are absolutely insane, because why are you the only one to see it? You're going to go through a whole lot of tears, because you're going to lose a whole lot of friends. You're going to lose a whole lot of family. And I think it's Mark 10 that tells you that's going to happen. I hate that chapter in Mark 10. I'm pretty sure it's Mark 10. I don't like reading it, because I can see my own situation there all the time. But what do you want to do? Do you want to be Mr. or Mrs. Popularity? Or do you want to stand and have a shot at being one of those 144,000? Because, you all are here because you know we are at the very door of when those 144,000 are going to be chosen. Now, those 144,000 aren't going to be disputing about the calendar. They're not going to, I think, because we also know what Shavuot represents. I'm getting into a sermon here. I didn't think I was going to do this. I'm way off what I was going to talk about, but you also know what Shavuot represents. And I'm going to save that for tomorrow, but it represents the time when we are changed in the twinkling of an eye, and the dead rise first. And those of us who are alive, hopefully I'll be one of them, at least alive, if not risen up at that time, to meet him in the clouds. And we know that's happening at the end of the tribulation in the year 2033. Just can you count 2033? We're in 2021. 12 years. 12 years from tomorrow. Look back where you were 12 years from today. Me? I was struggling to get this message out. I don't think I knew anyone here 12 years ago. Maybe James. No, not even James. No, I don't think I knew any of you 12 years ago. That's how much time is left. So I know it's getting late in Israel and I don't want to take up, I didn't know Rebecca was even going to be here today. And if she wants to, I don't know what her plans were. Maybe she just wanted the day off to come and listen. That's great. She's more than welcome. But she's such a key person to witness this stuff that if she wants to say something now, she's more than welcome, because, you know, for somebody to be selected by Jehovah to see these things is kind of like stunning. To stand up when everyone is against you is like, wow. To have a bigger backbone than most people do courage is stunning. To go against well-established, I don't want to say the mantra. How about the mantra? And to stand up and, you know, stick your neck out when you could be wrong. And to go, you know, and I'm saying these things about Rebecca because that's how I felt. And I know exactly how she feels, because that's how I felt in giving this message about the Jubilee cycles. Who am I? Why did Jehovah choose? Well, because I'm the biggest dumbass there was, and I'm just stupid enough that I can't shut my mouth. Yeah. So I understand what Rebecca's going through, and it's hard. So, you know, I do not always agree with Rebecca's reports. I've disagreed with her about the moon one time. That's fine. Rebecca, I'm going to put an X on her and not talk to her ever again because of that. No, that's stupid. You take these people as witnesses and you listen to their testimony. And the moment the others start to attack others because they got a different testimony is the minute that I stop listening to them. They could have all been witnesses for Jehovah. Instead, too many of them have become witnesses for themselves. And I know this is being recorded, and I really just don't give a damn, Scarlett. I want to serve Jehovah. And I'm in Canada. So in order to do that, we got to rely on other people telling us what they see. And okay, I'm just going off here and on and on. Rebecca, I don't know. Do you got anything you want to say today, or are you just visiting? Welcome to settingmoon.com.
Actually, Randy reached out and said, "Hey, why don't you pop in tonight?" And I said, okay. That's really what happened.
Yeah. So, well, you know, I'm not expecting you to teach. I wasn't even expecting you to be here.
No.
But I've asked you for a state of the barley, or state of the wheat, what state the wheat was in, and you sent me that on Thursday, and I thank you very much for doing that for us and getting it done in time. I know that you wanted to do it again Friday. How hot is it there now?
Oh my goodness. Well, it was well into the 90s today. I would think we got around 95. And we're on our way to 107 in about 3 more days.
When did you go out and visit the fields last?
Thursdays. Yeah. It's, I mean, I personally, the reason I don't like going to the field this time of year is you've seen the drastic change on the land. And the only thing is that this time of year, literally the thistles take the land over. And many of them are taller than me. So getting into the fields now is not the most pleasant thing in the world if I've got to beat the thistles back. And then that's not even mentioning the ticks. So I haven't been back into the field since Thursday. I want to go, probably will go on probably Monday, to go early in the morning before the heat gets up.
Can I ask you another favor? I've asked you a bunch of favors this year and last year and other years. Could you go out to the fields, those same fields, shovel for the other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can get in there, I will.
I just like to rub salt a little bit.
I know. They're not going to have wheat.
know.
With the temperatures that we have now, the wheat is just, I mean, it's just turning black like nobody's business, and it's not going to be standing on the stalk. If it's standing on the stalk in another week, I'll be shocked.
That's not what I want to hear, but that's also what I want to hear. And I want to, we still have a little bit of time left before what I believe is all hell coming. And they need to see the errors of their ways. So this is one way to do that. So I'm hoping that you will go out and, you know, if once a week or whenever, you know, at your convenience, but before Shavuot, leading up to their Shavuot, show them how little wheat is left.
Right. I don't mind doing that. In my opinion, the biggest issue that we have in the biblical calendar groups is everybody is only looking at the barley. You can call a beep whatever you want it, as long as you're only dealing with the barley and you walk away. But when you say this is a beep, and that was why I was basically just physically ill last week, is because, you know, I said this is a beep. Now I have to have wheat for Shavuot. And we had that second cold snap with rain, and everything kind of went, oh, I'm going to stand right here and I'm not going to change colors.
Yeah, but that's supposed to be a sign that we're keeping it too early, and we're supposed to be keeping it next month with the other people.
Right, exactly. And that was my concern, is that the wheat would not have been ready in time. And it was questionable to me with that cold snap, because everything just kind of went into limbo. So anyway, what I was saying is it's really easy to say this is what a beep means, and then you walk away and you're done. But if everybody would focus, the wild wheat and the wild barley exist in Israel. If we'll focus on both grains, that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. You can't say that this is a wheat. You can't say that something brown and crunchy like this is what you have to harvest and then get to Shavuot and there's no wheat standing. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
No,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, on my behalf, but I'm going to say it on behalf of everyone here, and then about everyone else who's not here with us, but who is also following your reports. Thank you. Thank you very much. I know for a fact that I'm keeping Jehovah's holy days at the right time. I look back when I was in the Worldwide Church of God. I look back at those years when I first learned about the barley, and I remember all the things I thought I knew, but the barley had already receded, and we were keeping wave sheaf days. So we were even late back then for a number of times, but I didn't know then. And it's hard to not see once you've seen. It's hard to unsee the truth once you've been exposed to it. And so I thank you for the work that you're doing there. And on behalf of all of us, we are now keeping the holy days when Jehovah said. And I can't thank you enough for that.
It's him you have to thank. I'm literally, I mean, this year, if I learned anything, I'm literally just a bondservant to him. Whether or not we had wheat, was completely dependent on him and his mercy, because I didn't think we were going to make it.
So what is you held up a piece of wheat there. What is the state of the wheat right now?
This is what I had.
And again, we are, just for the record, we are talking Saturday, Shabbat, April 17th, 2021. The 49th day of us counting the Omer, and the state of the wheat today, Rebecca, is?
I'm going to tip the computer screen down. I'm just sitting here peeling it. It's like a popcorn kernel.
So that is,
that's what I harvested on Thursday, and it's just laid here on the desktop. And my true fashion till I decide what to do with it. I don't think I can pick up anything without it coming apart. Let me just. Okay, so this is what what I brought home looks
Hold
like.
it, pull it
That's what
back a little
looks like.
bit, back away. Yeah, there you go.
And if you watch,
So it's just falling apart.
just falling apart.
Okay, can you just open one of those pods for
Oh,
us?
that's what this is. That's what these are.
Okay, hold it back from the camera a little bit. You're too close. Okay, so the light is
And
blinding us.
you
So
cannot dent it. I can snap it. I just snapped it, but you can't even dent it anymore. It's snappable.
and so just so that we all know, can somebody give me the accurate date? When did the other group keep Passover or Wave Sheaf Day this year? Was that 3 weeks ago?
Let me think.
March 17th?
I think that 17th, I think that's right. Or
Okay.
16th, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. So it's only been, and today is,
They
sorry,
kept it 27.
2 weeks ago on the 27th.
March 27th?
27th instead of the 17th, okay.
27th. And today is the 17th. So that is what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying, I'm pointing out 3 weeks after they kept Passover, when the barley was supposed to be first harvested, this wheat that Becca's showing you is now already reseeding itself.
Yeah.
So where is their second witness? That's what I'm trying to point out to everyone. Where is the second witness? Which, you know, we're always crying about a second witness. So where is it?
They're not going to have one.
No. Okay. Becca, now do you want anything else to say? I don't want to cut you off at all, but
No,
do you-
no. I'm just here for
Visiting.
whatever
Welcome.
because Randy invited me and I just, so I
Well,
came.
Okay, so I wasn't planning on, I was just going to do a little spiel about the barley and our second witness. And then I wanted to go into something else today. And I want you all to think before you speak, please. You know, please don't show us how stupid you are or how ignorant you are. Please check your, you know, those teeth there, use them as a gauge. Shut that tongue up and just hold on to it. Because I know some of you just don't get it. So that also, because of that, I wanted to do this today. Today is the 49th day. What does that mean? What does the 49th day mean? Where, okay, so 49th is just, it's a Sabbath before Shavuot. Okay, step back, think bigger. It's the 49th year before the Jubilee year. What does that mean? Okay, step back. It's the 49th year before the Jubilee year at the end of the 6th millennium. What does that mean now? Does that mean anything to you? Pamela, you're saying something? I can't hear you. What are you saying?
I'm saying, yeah, wow, that's the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yes to both of that. Now, step back again and look at that at the end of the 7th millennium. What does that mean? It's the end of one and the beginning of the next. Okay, so what got me thinking about that? Well, actually, I only started thinking about it this morning. I wrote about it in the newsletter. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to save that for Shavuot. But the 49th, the 7th Sabbath, the completing of 7, the going around of 7, the circling of our groom 7 times. We've got another video about that, you know, those little Toonie videos we're doing. I've now got them in 8 languages. I got 2 more languages I'm going to do. And I don't care if they got mistakes in them. If that bothers you, come and help. If you can speak another language, come and help. But don't sit there and point fingers and say, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing something. I now speak Portuguese, Italian, French, soon to be Russian, Korean, Spanish. Did I say French? I don't know. 10 languages. And I'm becoming an expert at not speaking any of them real well. But we're getting this message out. And our next teaching is about the 7ing. We already got one ready about the middle of this sabbatical cycle. What happens, the curses. That's ready. And I've got it in half them done in other languages. Today is the 49th day. Last Friday, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, died. And today was his funeral. Now, you may not consider that a big deal. It's a big deal. He's been married to the Queen for 73 years. That's a big deal. He's been directing that monarchy for, I think, 73 years, actually, yeah, because he's been instrumental in how they present themselves. Because they got a difficult job in trying to represent what their position is to their kingdom and to the world. So he's buried today. I watched it this morning. I watched the whole thing this morning. Anyone else watch it? He's not a king. He's a prince. He's married to the Queen. Why is this important? His family tree ties into Queen Elizabeth's family tree, and he and her are third cousins, I believe. And his family history is remarkable. His sisters all married Nazis before the war, and before Nazism became an evil thing, when they're still trying to figure out what it was. So if y'all want to take your Bible, we're going to do a little history lesson here today, because our King, Jehovah, is telling us when to meet with him. We're here on the Shabbat. Everyone, okay, not everyone. I take that back. Most people can figure out that the Shabbat is the 7th day of the week, and it's Saturday, from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. And Randy, keep an eye on the chat, because I don't have the chat up here, so you have to let me know if I need to address something there. Let's go to 1 Samuel. I want to go 1 Samuel 10. 1 Samuel 10. And I can see Wilson jumping up and down, and he's going to get excited here, I think. Maybe, maybe not. 1 Samuel 10, 20. Okay, I got the wrong thing. 1 Samuel 10, 24. That's 2 Samuel. That's what that is. 1 Samuel 10, 24. And Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see him whom the Lord has chosen? That there is no one like him among all the peoples." So all the people shouted and said, "Long live the king. Long live the king." I'm going to show you where this expression comes from. We know that earlier the people rebelled against Jehovah, and they chose Saul as their king. And Samuel was upset, justifiably, but Jehovah told him not to be upset. So long live the king. Then we're going to go to 2 Samuel, verse 123. Second Samuel, verse 1. 23 to 25. Saul and Jonathan were beloved and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul. Who? Weep over Saul. Weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet with luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan was slain in your high places. We're to weep over Saul. Saul's the bad guy. He tried to kill David. We're to weep over Saul. Today, Prince Philip was buried. He was put into the vault below, whatever that church is called. And I had a tear in my eye. Second Samuel 5, verse 1. And to all the tribes of Israel came, and then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and spoke, saying, indeed, we are your bone and your flesh. As also in times past, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel out and brought them in. And the Lord said to you, you shall shepherd my people, Israel, and rule over Israel. Therefore, all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the king, and they anointed king over Israel. Not just Judah, but over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. Okay, now we're going to go to 2 Samuel 16:16. And so it was when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom, that Hushai said to Absalom, long live the king, long live the king. Absalom was trying to take over the throne. But they're saying, long live the king, long live the king. 1 Kings 1:25. First Kings 1:25. For he has gone down today and sacrificed oxen and fatted, 1 Kings 1:25, yeah. And fatted cattle and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the king's sons and commanders of the army, and Abiathar the priest, and look, they are eating and drinking before him. They say, long live King Adonijah. So this was like, okay, who is this? We've got Saul. Now we've got King David. And now King David's about to die, and Adonijah is trying to take over the throne. And they're saying, long live the king. Long live the king. Do you see how early this tradition has started? Go to verse 34. Let's start in 33. The king also said to them, take with you servants of your Lord, and have Solomon my son ride on my own mule. Listen to this carefully. Ride on my own mule, and take him down to Gihon. Okay. What is down in Gihon? The tabernacle is set up in Gihon. Where's Gihon? Gihon is the spring in the city of David, where David comes through and conquered the city from the Jebusites. The Gihon spring today is in the exact same place. And when you go down or outside the gate there, where the Gihon comes out of the ground, You'll be at the bottom of the Kidron Valley, and that's where the tabernacle was set up. So this is what, take my son Solomon and ride him on it on my own mule and take him down to Gihon. There, let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him king over Israel and blow the horn and say, long live King Solomon. If you watch today's service, did you hear the horns blowing? They don't got the 3 fingers on them. These are the silver trumpets. And they have one note, but they make the sound out of their mouths. Now, I can't do that, but they do. When you listen to the news tonight, you should listen to these sounds. Don't listen to the American. Go to a BBC broadcast. It'll be all over there, or even CBC. But listen to the sounds of the music that they make. The trumpet blast, the shofar blast about our king. Okay, that's 34, 3, 1 Kings 1, 38 to 40. Or are we going to keep going? Verse 38. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, the Kerethites, and the Pelethites went down and had Solomon ride on King David's mule and took him to Gihon. Then Zadok the priest took a horn of oil from the tabernacle and anointed Solomon. And what they take is they take this horn of oil and they pour it on his head. So it runs down his head, it runs down his beard and down his garments. If you watch the anointing of Queen Elizabeth back in 1953, I think it was, they did the exact same ceremony on her. You should go and watch it. And then read this verse here. This is what's taking place. 2 Kings 11:12. Second Kings 11:12. And he brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony. What's the testimony? The scrolls. And they made him king, and they anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, long live the king. Now keep reading. Then when Athaliah heard the noise of the escorts and the people, she came to the people in the temple of the Jehovah. When she looked, there was the king standing by the pillar. What's the pillar? We've talked about this before. There's the king standing by the pillar. I think, didn't we just read that in Genesis about Jacob? According to the custom. Tradition. Yeah, they already got traditions for the king. Where did they get this tradition from? Jacob, standing by the pillar stone. And the leaders and the trumpeters. What the trumpeters? Why do we have to have trumpeters? What are the trumpeters doing? They were there at today's funeral. It's Shavuot. People think, what are the trumpeters doing? According to the custom, and the leaders and the trumpeters were by the king. All the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. So Athaliah tore her clothes and cried out, treason, treason. Okay, you can read the rest of that. That's where she gets killed. Now I want to go to Matthew 21. Matthew 21. And where am I? Matthew 21, verse 9. Matthew 21, verse 9. Then the multitudes, let's just go up a little bit. Let's go, sorry, verse 6. So the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them. They brought the donkey and the colt, laid their clothes on them, and set him on them. And a very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then the multitude who went before And those who followed cried out, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Long live the King. Okay, they didn't say that. It's the same thing though. Okay, if you go back to check the Greek and the Hebrew, no, they're not the exact same words. I'm saying they have the same meaning. That's Joe Dumond interpretation, you know. And when they had come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, who is this? You know, Zechariah 14, and I don't have the verse, but Zechariah 14 talks about your king coming into Jerusalem on a colt. Does it not? Zechariah. So here we have our king coming in Jerusalem on a colt. We have King David putting Solomon on a colt and bringing him into Jerusalem, or bring him down to the Gihon to be anointed. And today, they didn't do the white horse ceremony today because Prince Philip is not the king. He's married to the queen. Long live the queen. Long live the queen. In what, 3 days? No, yeah, 3 days. She will be 95 years old. Long live the queen. She's done more good for our world than most others have. And I'm very proud of our queen. Why does this matter? Who cares? I know you Americans are going, another British loyalist, another monarchist. Yeah, some of my ancestors left Boston in the 1776 revolution and became loyalists and came up to Canada. We were the smart ones. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to go. Okay, I got a note here. I'm not sure I got the note here. Second Chronicles. No, I don't want to go there. I want to go to Genesis 38. I want to go to Genesis 38. And if somebody, can I get a volunteer to read the whole chapter? We're going to read all of Genesis 38. Now, notice we're talking about the story of Joseph here before this. And all of a sudden, we take a little detour and Genesis 38 pops up. We got a volunteer? Don't everybody jump up at once? Just wave.
I'll do it.
Frank, you're a monarchist. I don't know if I should have you do it. But go ahead, sir. No, I just said fighting words because he's in Northern Ireland. But we'll get to that in a
I'm
minute.
in the other part. I'm
Okay.
in the other part of Ireland.
You're
but
the
that-
other part.
That doesn't
Go
matter.
ahead, Frank. Read 38 for us, please. And thank you.
Yeah, okay. At that time, it came to be that Yehuda left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Adulamite whose name was Hira. And Yehuda saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shuvah. And he took her and he went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again, and she bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again, and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Kezib when she bore him. And Yehuda took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Yehuda's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yehovah, and Yehovah took his life. And Yehuda said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be that when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Jehovah, so he took his life too. Then Yehuda said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown. For he said, lest he also die as his brothers did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And after a long time, the daughter of Shua, Yehuda's wife, died, and Yehuda was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And it was reported to Tamar, saying, see, your father-in-law has gone up to Timnah to shear his sheep. And she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown and that she was not given to him as a wife. And Yehuda saw her and reckoned her as for a whore, for she had covered her face. And he turned aside and to her by the way, and he said, please let me come into you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what do you give me to come into me? And he says, let me send you a young goat from the flock. And she says, do you give me a pledge until you send it? So he says, what pledge should I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave them to her, and he went into her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away and removed her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Yehuda sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. And he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way to Enaim? And they said, there was no cult prostitute in this place. And he returned to Yehuda and said, I've not found her. The men of the place also said that there was no cult prostitute in this place. And Yehuda says, let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to be about 3 new moons afterwards that Yehuda was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has whored, and she has conceived by whoring. And Yehuda said, bring her out and let her be burned. But when she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she says, please examine whose these are, the seal, the cord, and the staff. And Yehuda examined and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son. And he never knew her again. And it came to be at the time for giving birth, see, twins were in her womb. And it came to be that she was giving birth, that one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. And it came to be that as he drew back his hand, she says, his brother came out. And she says, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. So his name was called Peretz. And afterwards, his brother came out who had the scarlet thread on his hand. So his name was called Zerah.
Thank you, Frank. There's a bunch of things we
You're
could talk
welcome.
about. There's a bunch of things we could talk about here, but we're going to focus just on this one part here at the end. Zerah stuck out his hand and pulled it back in. And then out come Ferris. And in English, you don't really see it, but Ferris is a play on words, as in he broke the breach. He came up first. So I'm throwing that in there because there's a saying that Solomon did. I guess that's what my note is here. Just let me check. 2 Chronicles 23. 2 Chronicles, where are you? 2 Chronicles 23, verse 11. 2 Chronicles, oh no, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Hold your finger. If you're already there, 2 Chronicles 23, 11. We're going to go back there. But I want to go to 2 Kings 11. 2 Kings 11, 4. Oops. Yeah. Get there and then you lose all your pages all at once. 2 Kings 11, 4. In the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and brought the captains of hundreds of the bodyguards of the escorts and brought them into the house of the Lord to him. And he made a covenant with them and took an oath from them in the house of the Lord and showed them the king's sons. Why am I reading this? I should have read this before. I apologize. Okay. 11. Verse 5. Then he commanded them, saying, this is what you shall do. 1/3 of you who come on duty on the Sabbath shall be keeping watch over the king's house. 1/3 shall be at the gate of Sur, and 1/3 at the gate behind the escorts. You shall keep the watch of the house, lest it be broken down. The 2 contingents of you who go off duty on the Sabbath shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord for the king. But you shall surround the king on all sides, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within range, let him be put to death. You are to be with the king as he goes out and as he comes in. So the captains of the hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. Each of them took his men who were to be on duty on the Sabbath with those who were to going off duty on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. And the priest gave the captains of hundreds the spears and the shields which had belonged to King David that were in the temple of the Lord. Then the escort stood every man with his weapons in his hand all around the king from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple by the altar and the house. And he brought out the king's sons, put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony. And they made him king and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, long live the king. Okay. Now when Athaliah heard it, okay, so I've already read that Athaliah part. Now we go back to 2nd Chronicles. So again, folks, my notes, I got these, it looked like a football diagram, and I just misread one of the place. I apologize. So 2nd Chronicles 23:11. And they brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. Then Jehoiada and his sons anointed him and said, long live the king. Okay, I'm doing the same thing again. That's not what I'm looking for. Where is it? There it is. 1 Chronicles 2:6. 1 Chronicles 2, verse 6. So we've just read about Tamar, the birth of Phares, and the birth of Zerah. 1 Chronicles 2:6. Starting verse 4. And Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bore him Perez and Zerah, and all the sons of Judah were 5. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamel. The sons of Zerah were Zimri, Ethan, Herman, Galcol, and Dara. 5 of them in all. You should have that underlined and marked. Verse 6, or you can write it down in your notes. Write down each of those names. And so I did not write down the note I'm looking for. And then the scripture I'm looking for is the one where Solomon says that he was wiser than Zerah. And I didn't write that scripture down. I'm sorry. Anybody know that one off by heart? First Kings 4:31. 1 Kings 4:31. Let me see if that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, read it, whoever that was.
And For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, than Heman, and Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his name was in all the nations around about.
So that was Solomon being wiser than these men here. And who are these men that he's talking about?
The sons of Perez,
No, these are the sons of Zerah.
the sons of Zerah, yeah.
Ethan, Herman, Galcol, Dar are the sons of Mahol, the sons of Zerah. And Solomon is wiser than anyone in the world, but yet he chooses these five here to say that he's wiser even than them. And then after this line, so that takes you to 1 Chronicles 2:6, tells you who they are. And then after this, we don't hear nothing more about Zerah. So for those of you who haven't already read in the 2300 Days of Hell, I go through this in great detail. Painstaking detail that make your brains hurt. There's so many notes and so many references, but we trace Galcol, Darda. They left Egypt before Moses. They left Egypt at the death of Joseph. And the reason they left Egypt at the death of Joseph was because they were afraid that Joseph's descendants would rise up and slaughter them or murder them for them, their ancestors selling Joseph into slavery. That's why Joseph says in Genesis, he says, this was a thing of Jehovah, do not fear. But they left anyway. Galcol went up and he settled in Greece. Darda went up and he settled in Crete. At the time of the Exodus, there's a dark cloud comes over the nation for 3 days. That's about the time of this great explosion in Crete. That's about the time that this broken down ship sailed to Tros. You ever heard the legend of Tros? They sailed from Crete after that great volcano blew up, made it black over Egypt for 3 days. The Tro became the Trojans, who became the kings that spread out when Troy fell. The sons of Zerah were the kings of Greece. The sons of Zerah, there's another one called Galus. Galus was also a station there in Egypt as a Grecian soldier. And it's from him that we get the name Milas or Millennium for his 1,000 wars that he fought in. Galus was very wise in his day, which he got from Zerah and his sons. Galus settled in the place called, on the west coast, called, he named it after himself as the port of Gaul, the port of Galus, which became the Portugal that we know today. Galus would then sail from Portugal up to the land of Ir and name it Hibernia again after the present Hibernia, which is the Iberian Peninsula, but he would then name Ireland Hibernia as well. Galus founded the language in Ireland named after him called Gaelic. And he founded that language in Scotland called Gaelic. Let's go to Numbers 2, verse 2. Numbers 2, verse 2. That's just a little background history. What's going on here? Numbers 2, verse 2. Every one of the children of Israel shall camp by his own standard. What's that mean? I make up my own rules. You make up your rule. We'll keep the holidays whenever you want. Keep your own standards. No, it's a banner. It's a flag. Each of the 12 tribes had a banner, a flag that they were to be encamped by. Besides the emblems of his father's house. So you have your tribe flag. Then you have the emblems of your own house, your own family crests. They shall camp some distance from the tabernacle of meeting. Okay. Numbers 152, I missed one. 152. The children of Israel shall pitch their tents, everyone by his own camp, everyone by his own standard, according to their own armies or their own tribes. We've read about Tamar coming out. Not Tamar coming out, but Zerah coming out, sticking his hand out, getting a feel for the temperature outside, said, it's cold out here, and he pulled it back in. And Pharaoh said, I'll go first. And he comes out, climbs over top of his brother Zerah, and he comes out. But once he comes out, he can't get back in. And he lies to Zerah, says, come on out, it's nice out here. So out comes Zerah second. That's just Joe Dumond's version. But basically, it's how it went. Randy, take over the screen there. I want you to show me those pictures I sent you, please. This is the red hand of Zerah. I cannot find the one with the red two fingers like this with a red thread on it, but they're out there. Okay, Randy, go to the next picture, please. Can you open up that one in the red hand in the middle? Can you make that bigger? So there's the red hand. And I have no idea why it's inside the Star of David. Anyone know what flag that is? Frank?
Well, it's like the Ulster flag for Northern Ireland, but
okay, so it's the
more,
Northern Irish flag.
Well, you'd see it there a lot because of the loyalists. You know, the Catholics would put up a tricolour for the Irish one, but the loyalists would use that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Northern Ireland. And as we all know, the Northern Irish they always got troubles with everybody. Everybody doesn't like the Northern Irish for some reason. So the Northern Irish, they moved out of there and they moved over to what was then unsettled country called Scotland. And the Scottish, now I forgot to put the symbol up here, but the symbol for Scotland is a upright lion standing up, and it's red. The upright standing red lion is the symbol of Scotland, but it doesn't have a crown on it. They got a crown in this one, but it's not exactly correct. Or is it? What do these symbols mean? They go right back to this line of Zerah. Well, I got some more scriptures here. I'm sure they made notes. 2 Samuel 7, verse 14 and 16. 2 Samuel 14. Yeah, I know what this one is now. Yeah. 2 Samuel 14, verse 14 and 16. 2 Samuel. Okay, for we will surely die and become like water spilled to the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away a life, but he devises means so that his banished ones are not expelled from him. Have I got the right verse here? I hope so. 2 Sam, no, I'm sorry, 2 Samuel 7, verse 14, not 14, 2 Samuel 7, verse 14. My bad. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the blows of the sons of men. But my mercy shall not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever. King David's throne shall be established forever. Jeremiah 33, verse 17. Jeremiah 33, verse 17. Jeremiah 33, verse 17. For thus says the Lord, David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. First Kings 9:5. 1 Kings 9:5. 1 Kings 9:5. Then I will establish the throne of your kingdom. Well, let me go back to verse 4. Now, if you walk before me as your father David walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded you, and if you keep my statutes and my judgments, then, verse 5, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom over Israel forever. As I promised David, your father, saying, you shall not fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. So my question to all you Jews or Jewish wannabes or you Torah, where's the king of Israel today? And if there is no king, and if the nations of Israel are scattered throughout the world, like a lot of people say, then Jehovah lied to King David, because he doesn't have a king sitting on the throne. Any of you dare call Jehovah a liar? Hey, Randy, you can take that flag down. Thank you, sir. Now we know that Solomon went back and put up these other gods. Solomon met with Jehovah 3 times. Then he put up these other gods 3 times or more. I'm not sure. I forget. 3 times, I think it is. Met with them face to face. And then he put up these other gods. These other gods are the other women that he married. And he put them all up on the Mount of Offense. That's the very toe of the Mount of Olives, the Mount of Offense. And he sacrificed his sons there. Put them through the fire of Moloch. And Jehovah took away the kingdom from Saul after he died. And he did it after he died for the sake of David. But he took the kingdom away and he split the kingdom. The line of Phares would become a dominant line. And they would rule. And they would rule throughout the time of the book of the Kings, that's 1st and 2nd Kings, until Zedekiah was destroyed and killed. And Zedekiah saw all his sons, his heirs, all of them slaughtered by the Babylonians. And then once that was done, they took his eyes out so that that would be the last thing he remembered. And Zedekiah died in a Babylonian prison, I believe. But we read in Jeremiah, now I didn't grab the scripture, but we read in Jeremiah taking the two daughters of Zedekiah and fleeing to Egypt. And here's where the Bible and mythology get mixed together, and it's very difficult to discern what is real and what's not. Whether it was Gaius or not, we can argue over that. Mythology says it was. History, maybe not so much. And when I say history, I mean facts. But Jeremiah took those two daughters. One of them was named Scota. And he came to Ireland, not far from where Frank lives, which is one of the places I want to go see whenever I get to travel again after COVID is over, if it is ever going to be over. And I hope to spend a little time with Frank and Mary and go and see this place. It's called Jeremiah's Grotto. But he brought Queen Scota there, and she married this king of Ireland named Herman. And Frank, you correct me if I got any of that wrong. Okay, so he didn't say nothing. I must be right. Either he's gone to bed. I don't know which. And then so when is that? That is the Babylonian time. So that's 586 BC. Where's the king?
Wasn't the queen called Tetepi?
That's the same one.
Yeah.
Tia Delphia. And the Delphia tells her, again, back to the tribe of Dan a little bit. Where's the king of Israel? Zedekiah, the lineage of Zedekiah is now finished. So where's the king? Scota is not a king. She's a princess. But she married this king called Herman in Ireland, in Hibernia, which is what Ireland was called before they changed the name. So let's back up a little bit. Zedekiah was the king in Jerusalem. Zedekiah is the line of Pharez in Genesis 38. But Zerah stuck his hand out and said it's too cold and pulled it back in. Zerah represents the red hand. Or the red hand, excuse me, represents Zerah. Right? The thread, you can find it. I couldn't find it, I just started doing this teaching you this morning. I couldn't find it before the teaching, but there's a picture of a red thread around the hand. I couldn't find it. It's out there.
Is it in that?
So let's back up. Let's back up. So we're right now we're at 586 BC when Zedekiah is killed. Let's back up to 721 or 723 BC when Israel is going into captivity. There's something else going on. We have documents, and I just opened up the British Encyclopedia Britannica, and you can do it today, and I'm going to read something to you here in a minute, so I'll make sure I got it ready. This is from Wikipedia, but before I get there, if you go and search up the Bet Qumri, the Bet is called the house. Qumri is Khumri. Qumri. That's what the Assyrians called the house of Israel. They started calling the house of Israel Bet Qumri because they couldn't say the house of Omri. And the house of Omri was around the 9th and 8th centuries BC. And the house of Omri was not a great king. He was one of the kings that Jehovah hated because he changed all the statutes and laws and came up with his own statutes and laws, which Jehovah hated. There's another study for you to go and do and look into that. Where do those statutes and laws, what that end up becoming? You'll be quite surprised. But Jehovah hated them, and that's the house of Omri, called by the Assyrians, and we know the Assyrians today to be the German people, the Alaman. They couldn't say Omri, so they called it the house of Qumri. Qumri. Then Israel is captured in 723 and deported. They actually began to be deported in 740 BC, but that was the first tribes, and they finally capitulated in 723. And the house of Qumri began to be recorded in the first recorded appearance or on records of stone was in Sargon's period, Sargon II. Now, Sargon II reigned from 722 BC to 705 BC. Funny how that worked out that way. 722 BC to 705 BC. And 723, Israel goes into captivity. And now Sargon's starting to write about them, but he's calling them, instead of the Qumri, he's calling them the Gumeri. Instead of a KH, it's now a G or a GH. The G and the K are interchangeable. The H is silent, so it becomes lost or dropped. And then the Qumri or Kumari become the Gimeri, which is the Gimirri. That name is recorded on the stone tablets of Sargon. The Gamari later become known as the Gameri, which is a Gamiri or Gamari. And Esarhaddon, or Esarhaddon, from 68 or 681 BC to 669 BC, is writing and complaining about these Gameri who he's battling with and who he's defeating. So that the Gameri, now the KH has become a GH, and that GH is now going to change at this time to what the historians in Greek are saying is a hard C or a hard K. Like in cat. Okay, like a hard C like in cat. And the hard C in cat is similar to the hard K. And the Gameri become known as the Gamerians, or the Gamerians with a hard C. And the Gamerians, as history will record, are what we now call the Sumerians, with a soft C, Immeran. And these Sumerians are also known as Cimmerians with a K or with a hard C. They're also known as the Scythians, Scythians. And they later become known as the Parthians, the mighty Parthian Empire who kept Rome at bay throughout the entire Roman Empire. The Parthians kept them from crossing the Euphrates. When the Magi came to see Yeshua's birth, because the Magi kept a record of who the kings or potential kings could be, of which Yeshua was a potential king. The Parthians had records. That's why they sent the Magi. And when the Magi came across the river, the Jordan River, that's why King Herod was so scared. He thought he was being invaded because the Magi didn't come just three magicians. They didn't come three at a time at Christmas time. These Magi were known to travel with 10,000 troops per Magi. So if we got 3 of them, that's 30,000, but it doesn't say how many there was. So imagine at least 10,000 troops coming across your border, showing up, and you got nobody ready to fight them. And they're not coming to fight, they're coming to visit Yeshua, who's just been born 2 years before. The mighty Parthian Empire sent a vast army to visit Yeshua, a potential heir to the throne that they were still keeping records of. Now, when the Persian Empire started to push with the Persians and the Medes, they began to attack what they call the Arsacids. Arsacids, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, which is the royal family of Israel, or the royal family of the Parthians. And they specifically attacked them and drove them out. And they fled through the Caucasus Mountains. That's where we get the name Caucasians from. That's where, and guess what? When they went through the Caucasus Mountains, the pass that they went through, the river stopped and they crossed that river dry shod. Guess what that pass is called today, to this very day? The Pass of Israel. The pass where Israel crossed the waters. And they went from the Armenian side into the Russian steppes. And from there, they came into Europe. Sumerians or Scythians, or the mixture of the two, because they're both the same people. That's one way they came. The other way they came was through the southern route, through the Greeks, through Gallus or Gothias, who brought the Gaelic language to Ireland and Scotland. Why is this funeral this morning of Prince Philip important? Because you're told to mourn for your king. He's not our king, but he was the backbone of Queen Elizabeth. He was the backbone of that royal family. The royal family. If you believe the crap that's out there about Prince Charles being, stop reading that crap. Because it's anti-Torah. When Queen Elizabeth dies, Prince Charles will be the next king. And if he dies, Prince William will be the next king. And if he dies, Prince George will be the next king over the house of Israel. And if that doesn't excite you, then this promise that Jehovah made to King David that he would never lack an heir on the throne, on his throne, means nothing to you. Today, at this funeral, on full display, the trumpets, the silver trumpets blasting away.
Can I just ask a question?
No, not yet. Our king, our queen, that Jehovah said would never die, are here with us today. How many of you mourned for Prince Philip? He lived a long and prosperous life, and he did a lot of good. How many of you mourned? How many of you cared? On display today was the red upright lion on the Beefeaters shirts. On display today was the harp of King David, the harp of King David, which is the symbol for Northern Ireland or Ireland. Why is Ireland got the symbol of King David's harp for their national flag? Do they know something you don't? Why is the red lion standing up without a crown on it, but the gold lion of the King and Queen of England is standing upright with the crown on it? It's fulfilling the promise of Jehovah right here, right now, right in front of your eyes, that never will there be lacking a king to sit on his throne. What is the red lion? That's the line of Zerah. And they are brought together now in the house of Windsor. The line of Ferrers and the line of Zara are brought together in the house of Windsor, which is Queen Elizabeth today. And we know that in a few years' time, our King Jehovah will be here. And also in a few years' time, King David will be raised up to take that throne back from his children. How that's going to happen, I don't know. Are they going to all be killed? I don't know. How? I don't know. I just know that our King, Jehovah's promise, is standing in front of us today. In the monarchy of Queen Elizabeth. And everything that you said, that you read about in your Bible, is on display for you to look at. The pomp and ceremony. The same pomp and ceremony today is what took place when they're standing by the pillar, anointing the pillar stone, the covenant stone. When Queen Elizabeth was anointed, she's sitting on that very same stone. That's what's underneath the chair of Abby. No, what's this? I forgot the name of the chair that she gets crowned on.
Coronation throne. Coronation throne.
Coronation throne. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing major events in history. Today's the 49th year or 49th day. It represents the 49th year. It represents that time when we are going to transition from the 6th millennium into the 7th millennium, when King David will reign. I don't know what the death of King Philip or Prince Philip means today. I just know that his funeral took place. He died last week, but his funeral is today on the 49th day. And I think that's highly significant. Now, we've gone on a little bit here. Steve, you wanted to say something. Now you can say something.
When the Queen is in power, does Jehovah consider her as a king, or is it her husband?
According to the rules of the monarchy, Prince Philip was never a king, and that she was queen without a king. So the heirs are still there. Prince Charles, Prince William, Prince George, they're still there. So I would consider the Queen a servant of the Most High. She is the king and queen. When they are enthroned, they represent Jehovah here on earth. They represent his pageantry. That's who they represent. They represent God. They may not know it. They got enough skeletons in the closet to shame any family. But when you represent Jehovah, each of you is called to be that representative. Each of you is called to be a king or a queen or the high priest. Look at what Queen Elizabeth has done. Look at what Prince Philip has done for the monarchy during their time in office. I think they were married just a couple of years before she became queen. And he has been behind them, telling them what they should do and what they should not do to represent the monarchy properly to the people around the world. We can go into the Americanism, where the Americans come from and where they rebelled way back when, starting with Manasseh. But I'm not going to do that today. I want you to understand the historic meaning of the monarchy and how it goes right back to King David, right back to a promise Jehovah made. Yes, Samuel was upset that they chose a King Saul over Jehovah himself. Those results are here with us to this day. Watch this stuff. Be awed by it. Be enamored by it. It's the pageantry goes right back to King David. It's awesome to see.
Does that mean that England is protected to a certain extent?
England has been blessed. England, look at England. The sun never sets on England up until the Americans took over. They received the blessing of the bounty that was given to the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. That is apparent today. No other nation in the world can claim. And I got people writing me all the time. The Black Hebrews write me, my 10 Commandments teaching. I don't talk about Africa being the 10 tribes of Israel. That's because they're not. Just because you went into slavery doesn't mean you're the Israelites who were also in slavery. That doesn't make you Israel. Check the history books. Yes, some people fled down to Africa and they may be keeping those traditions, but they're not Israel. It's not a race thing either. If you are keeping Torah, you are grafted in. And I don't care what color of purple you are, whether you got pink polka dots or blue ones. It doesn't matter. You are part of Israel if you're obeying the commandments. If Africa wants to become Israel and claim that they are Israel, that's awesome. They must also take the curses that are going to be inflicted on Israel too. And they are about to be wiped out. So if Africa wants to take on that claim as well, they're more than welcome to it. But Jehovah knows who Israel is. The greatest nations in the world, the greatest nations in world history, the United Kingdom and the United States, are the descendants of the name of Israel, and they are about to be destroyed because of that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say,
because they would
saying
not
the blessing
obey.
will be taken away then. Is that what you're saying? The blessing will be taken away shortly.
Well, it's already been taken away. The sea, controlling the sea gates of their enemies, they've almost given them all up. China's now taken over Malaysia Sea Gate, Suez Canal, Egypt, which Britain owned, Panama Canal, sold, I believe, to the Chinese, South Africa, the southern tip of Argentina, the Falkland Islands, I believe might be going back to the Argentines, and England's about to give that up. Gibraltar, the Spanish are trying to take that back. These are sea gates controlled, which is one of the blessings that was given to Rachel. May you control the gates of your enemies. No other nation has had this blessing besides these two nations. And those blessings are being taken away. Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, brother. It's always, I really enjoy listening to you talk about this. It's one thing to read it, but putting it all together, again, is great. Really appreciate it.
Wilson, forgive me, but it must be my Canadianness or something. I get excited about this stuff. I don't know why. I get excited about it because maybe I'm a monarchist at heart or a loyalist at heart. I don't know. But because I see Torah, I see Torah coming out in it.
Right. So, well, and I don't know how far down this road you want me to go, but there's a picture in First Kings. I wasn't sure where you were going with to start with. And I think it's very tied into what you're talking about.
You got a chapter and verse?
Well, I'll just hit a few.
Surprise us.
I'll hit a few points and then you can decide whether you want to go any further, because there is a lot here, a whole lot.
Well, so Wilson, so here's my plan for today. I wanted to talk about this. I want to talk a little bit about the barley, and then Rebecca showed up, which was great. And then the funeral showed up, which is why I want to talk about. But then I was going to do the Torah study, but we may not even get to the Torah study now. So I'm giving you free reign. Go wherever you're going.
Well, I'll just start here and then we'll see where it ends up. And I'm going to ask for some help. Anyway, so I'm going to start in verse 9.
Of what chapter?
I'm sorry. 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 9. You read this. Now, it says, one day Adoniah killed sheep, oxen, and fatted calves at the stone of Zochelet by En Rogel. Okay. He summoned all his brothers, the king's son, and all the men of Yehuda, the king's servants, but he did not summon Natan the prophet, Benaiah, the elite guard, or Shlomo, his brother. So if you look up the meaning of Zochelet,
Okay, did you want me to do that? I'm sorry.
you want me to do it?
Oh, hang on, I got it.
I-
What's the matter here? I'll come in. There we go. Gotta go slow. Maybe Randy can do it on the screen here for you. First-
Okay.
First Kings 1:9.
I mean, if you want, you can share screen with me, but whatever, however you want to do it.
Yeah, if you want share screen with Wilson, go ahead, Randy. My computer's giving me problems, so that's why Randy's got controls on this stuff.
You good, Wilson?
Okay, let me get to where. Okay, First Kings, sorry.
Wilson, I have no idea where you're going here. Interesting though.
I think you're gonna like it, but we'll see. Okay, so right here, can you see that?
Yep.
So of course now my computer's acting slow. There it is. Okay. So Zochelet, crawling, that is serpent, a boundary stone in Palestine. Okay. So Adoniah, whose name means is a worshiper of Yehovah. Okay, so he has a good, strong name, right? His name's right. He goes and he does this anointing.
Just correct me, Wilson, if I'm wrong. Wasn't Adonijah the one who raped his sister?
Right at
And-
this moment,
And his brother killed him later on? Is this the same Adonijah?
No, that's
no,
different
No.
brother.
Absalom. There we go, with the head of
Okay.
hair. He had the
Thank-
big head of hair. Yeah,
No,
good
but
looking
Absalom
guy.
killed Adonijah, did he not? Because he raped his sister.
I don't know right now. So,
No, that's not Adoniah. That's another brother that he killed that raped his sister.
Okay, thank you.
okay. So we have this. He goes to Enrogel, and this means the serpent, right? Okay. Where does Solomon go to be anointed? He goes to Gihon. What's Gihon?
Gushing
Okay.
waters.
Yeah. And it's also, both these things take us back to the garden. Gihon was the name of the river in the garden. So you
Yeah.
have the spring, the living water from the garden, and you have the serpent from the garden. And you have this picture here of Bathsheba. She comes into the king and says,
Verse 13? No,
I shouldn't be showing you all my notes here, but let me
verse 16.
hide this. I need to change where I'm at. I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. Sorry.
You want me to read verse 16?
Yeah, I got a little off track here. Go for it.
I'll start in verse 15. So Bathsheba went into the chamber to the king. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was serving the king. And Bathsheba bowed and did homage to the king. Then the king said, "What is your wish?" Then she said to him, "My lord, you swore by the Lord your God to your maidservant, saying, assuredly Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. So now look, Adonijah has become king, and now my lord, the king, you do not know about it. He has sacrificed oxen and fatted cattle and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the sons of the king, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army, but Solomon your servant he has not invited. Do you want me to keep going?
Okay, what verse are you on?
I'm just about to go into 20.
Okay, actually 20 is the one I want to focus on. So now read this. Verse 20, go for it.
And as for you, my lord, O king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, that you should tell them who will sit on the throne of my lord, the king, after him.
Okay, so you have this picture here of King David being the father, right? He is the father of Solomon. He's also the father of Adonijah, right? And you have this anointing that takes place, and now doubt is in the air. And I'm going to argue that this is a picture of the anti-Messiah in the last days. And it says all of Israel is waiting to know who's going to be king. Is it going to be Adonijah, the anti-Messiah, if you will, or is it going to be Solomon, the one who rightfully deserves the throne? And now the king has said nothing. He's allowed this to go on. And he says, okay, it's going to be Solomon. And then you see after this period of waiting that Solomon is anointed, and there's no more waiting or wondering that takes place. And that was the main point I wanted to make. I mean, there's a lot of other things here. The whole idea about Abishag, the Shunammite woman, is a big deal. She's a picture of the bride, the virgin bride that doesn't have relations with the father, so that she can then be married to the son. And she is actually the reason there's this huge, Solomon could forgive Adonijah, him trying to take the throne. But when Adonijah went into Bathsheba and said, you know, talk to Solomon and get Abishag the Shunammite for me, that was it. He says, that's it. He's cost him his life. It's over. Why was that? Here he could stand him trying to take the throne, but when he went for the bride, that was it. It was a death sentence, because the whole kingdom, the whole controversy here, the whole picture is the controversy over the bride, that the Annas Messiah, the enemy, wants the bride. That's the prize of this whole picture that we have. And so anyway.
No, that's brilliant. I'm listening and thinking
and so
wowing. That's right on, Wilson. I like that.
And I mean, I wasn't really prepared for this. I didn't know what you were going to be talking about today.
What I'm talking about today is not what I had prepared yesterday. So.
Yeah. But if you just go through this whole thing and you start breaking down the names and breaking down, and I had a better study at one point. I think I lost it on another computer, but it's a pretty amazing thing what goes on right here.
What we take in the Bible is some pretty boring chapters or books that, you know, oh man, we don't look forward to reading them. When you study them and understand what is going on, the deep meanings, the deep revelations that are there, and how those same things are going on today, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
Well,
we are so dumbed down. You know, I remember as a child, this older middle teen, asking me where was Canada. He'd never heard of Canada. I was in Florida. He'd never heard of Canada. Yeah, but we have been so dumbed down in our history. But the part I showed you about the Sumerians and the Kimri and Gameri, it's right there in all the encyclopedias, but nobody looks. When I first started doing it, I was told that you can't go past the Celtic people. You can't understand beyond the history doesn't record. Well, of course it does. You just gotta look who the historians are. They're speaking in a different language, but they record the same events. Wilson, you're gonna say something else.
Well, just another point here. When you look at Adoniah in verse 19, it says, he has killed oxen, fattened calves, sheep in great numbers, and he has summoned all the sons of the king, Evitar the Cohen and Joab the commander of the army. So he had his own priesthood. He had a commander. His name was right, a good, righteous name. He's a son of the king. He's going to get anointed by a rock. Okay, all these things sound good, but there's little aspects that are just off, and he's not the proper king. And it's this whole bringing into question who's going to rule. And so, you know, I guess to me, it also, just because someone's in the line of the king doesn't mean that they are the righteous heir to the throne, I guess I would say.
We
And I think-
have, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
What I'm gonna say, you have a similar situation taking place right now in the monarchy.
That's the point I was kind of tying in here. And I'm not
Yeah.
really saying who's who and what's what. I'm just saying there's a picture here for the last days. And I think it is significant, you know, that this
Is
funeral
Prince
happened.
Charles gonna take the throne? Or it won't be any of his brothers, they're too disgraced. It could be Prince Edward. He's not done anything wrong as far as I know. Andrew has. What about Prince William? Everyone loves him and Kate. Everyone loves Prince Harry. And the big schmozzle going on now, is that going to change? We don't know. But when you read the book, as Wilson is pointing out, when I read the Book of Kings, the stuff, the Book of Samuel and the Book of Kings, the stuff that's going on in David's life, it's a pagan place. It's just like what's going on in the monarchy right now. People vying for positions, and the big argument today was, well, Prince Andrew's disgraced, so he wanted to wear his uniform to walk behind the casket. Well, the others, Prince Harry wanted to wear his uniform, but because Prince Andrew's disgraced, Prince Harry has been removed of royal duties. The Queen said, "You're all wearing suits." Boom, end of subject. No more discussion. But these controversies are still going on here. And if you read the Book of Kings, or you read 2 Samuel, it reads just like today. Kurt, go ahead.
Found it. I found the button. Okay, so I've got a question. We read Jeremiah 33, and we read verse 17.
Yep.
Saying that David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. Let's continue for a second.
Hang on. Let me get there.
Yeah, you probably want to get there. Maybe you should give everybody a chance.
Jeremiah 33, and you're in verse 17 going on to 18.
17.
Now,
Well, there's a bunch of
Jeremiah,
interesting stuff.
just so that everyone knows, Jeremiah is the one who takes the daughters, Scota, and leaves.
Okay, so we read 17. Now continue in 18. Seems like it's a continuation of the same sentence. Nor shall the priests, the Levites, lack a man to offer burnt offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to sacrifice continually. Well, me being from Saskatchewan, that's if David's not going to lack somebody to follow him, and it's saying the same thing here about the priests and the Levites. Well, where are they today?
Ba-boom.
What happened there?
Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Excellent question. And I don't have an answer.
The priesthood changed was
Joe.
the priesthood changed. It was passed to Yeshua into Melchizedek. Was completed. We don't have to have it today after Yeshua died and resurrected. We are
Well,
in a
hang on, Rebecca, well, just Rebecca, go back and read verse 18 again. Jeremiah 33, verse 18, nor shall the priests, the Levites, lack a man to offer burnt offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to sacrifice continually. Now, okay, it doesn't say forever, to sacrifice continually. I guess we gotta look up that word continually, don't we? Does that mean, like what Kurt's implying, that we should still have a priesthood today?
No, I think that means
Well,
they continually keep the fire going, that they're supposed to keep going perpetually. Of course, now they don't exist, so that's not being fulfilled.
Well, the Levites still exist. We managed to find some to train for the temple in Jerusalem right now. They're actually being trained over there. So they do exist. Okay, this is for
Temple's missing.
the temple's missing.
I'm just kind of looking at it at face value, right? You know, we read the first part of the
Yeah.
sentence and we seen, you know, and I've read that before, but it never caught my eye what's in the same sentence. And it, you know, if you regard one, the other must be true also. But how exactly? I don't know.
Okay, I'm just looking up the Hebrew. It says 3605 kol. Enough every howsoever, as many as, thing ought, whatsoever. Okay, so it's a two-part word, that's kol, and the other part is yom, yom kol, yom hot day. Okay, continually. I'm not sure what that word continually means then. Kurt, why don't you look that word in Klein's there, see if you can find out what it means.
What's the word?
It's, well, it's continually is H
Of the
30
Hebrew in front of.
kol, KOL 3605, and then 3117, which is yom. Kol yom.
Would that be a kaf lamed?
Coal is like the
Probably.
sands on the sea. Coal is perpetual. Coal is never ending. If you can imagine counting all the grains of sand in the sea, that's coal.
Okay. That's where we get the word continually from then. So day is yom, that doesn't need explanation there. Kurt, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know where they are. Rebecca
So-
says we don't need them anymore after Yeshua, but then that's not what it says.
Ezekiel 44 has instructions for the priests who are the sons of Zadok. And that's in the third temple. So I cannot agree that we don't need priests.
Yeah,
After
I agree with you
Until
on
we
that.
have a temple, they don't need a servicer. There's no temple, there's no service.
Okay, but then what Kurt is asking here is if what I'm saying is we got a king, David's always had someone sitting on the throne. We've got that today with Queen Elizabeth. Kurt's asking, where's the Levitical priest? Which is the very next verse. And Kurt's got a good point. Where are they?
I just read that differently. Like I said, that they were given the task of keeping the fire burning continuously. That same word is used in some other scriptures regarding that service. And it means the fire doesn't go out. It doesn't mean that they're going to do this forever eternally or through a lineage till today. It's not saying that, although I read that to be the case in the the line all the way to the queen today. That makes sense. But the way
But
it's
the fire, but
worded,
Glenn, the fire did go out.
because the temple's gone.
Yeah.
No. I guess you don't understand what I'm saying. The act of the priest was to burn that fire continuously while the temple is up, while they are servicing their duties.
So
The
you're
temple
saying,
is
you're saying
gone.
that verse 18 only applied until 70 AD.
Till the temple was gone. Then you don't have the serviceability of the temples, rituals and such. So it's done. Until the temple is again in the third temple, there's no need of Levitical priests.
So if my name is Joseph Levi and I'm a bona fide descendant of Levi, can I go out and start making sacrifices now? And
No, that's the point. You can train if you want. You can learn all you want. You can study. You can educate. You can practice, but you can't go do it until the temple is back.
why not?
Because the temple is not here. There's no
But
temple.
they didn't have a temple when Abraham did it, and Isaac and Jacob.
Not this. That's after Mount Sinai, not before Mount Sinai.
No approved altar.
Exactly. I'm sorry. That's the best way to say it. No approved altar.
The
But,
fire
okay, but
went
hang on.
out.
Well,
The-
I can
Hang on, let Rebecca go first.
The fire went out in the tabernacle as well, with the corrupt priests as sons of Eli.
Okay, so you're going back to Shiloh.
Yes, so the fire went, it's after Sinai when the priest was installed. So you have the fire going out with the corrupted priesthood.
Did the fire go out? Have you got a scripture to back that up?
Well, there is no, the covenant, the ark is taken by the enemies.
The ark is taken, but did the fire go out?
The tabernacle is not functioning. Samuel is going by foot around the country to teach the people.
Okay, but did the fire go out? Unless you can back that up with scripture, you're making an assumption. And I'm not sure that you're wrong. I need proof.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so while you're looking for that, Kurt, you were going to say something.
Well, I can agree with, or I can understand, put it that way, the point about the temple being gone and we don't have, right? Therefore, there's no priests to do the offerings and whatnot.
But if we do
But
have
that's
a
not
priest,
that's not what it said here. Like you
Well-
said, it didn't say just until, it said never lack a man. So I'm just trying to understand, right?
yeah, okay.
We got to compare the two. If they were both written the same way, I would say they both mean the same thing. But
It is written the same way.
Can we go over it again? Let me see what that is.
The one is.
So this is where I would say prayer services comes in. There will never lack a man who is in the process of praying the prayers. There will always be someone keeping those fires burning. There will always be someone doing the liturgical prayers who is in essence keeping those fires burning, keeping those sacrifices going.
I hear what you're saying, Sombra. I'm not really disagreeing with what you're saying, but the carnal me is jumping up and down saying, nope, 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 nope. I'm
So
looking
You
for
want
a real,
physical fire,
pardon
not
me?
a spiritual fire. You want a physical fire.
I'm looking like if I am understanding Kirk correctly, I see the King and Queen of England as a direct descendant and a promise, Jehovah, that no man would be lacking sitting on the throne. And then without skipping a beat, nor shall the priests, the Levites, lack a man to offer burnt offerings before me. Don't comma in Hebrew, to kindle grain offerings and to sacrifice continually. So to me, there should be somebody out there burning a fire right now.
Okay, so the way I understand the Hebrew means to approach. It's not about the fire. It's about approaching. That means that there won't ever be.
But you're spiritualizing the hard facts of this case. We don't have a spiritual king of descendant of King David. We have a real bona fide heir that's
And I'm
ruling
saying
over.
if there's a real bona fide man who's standing up saying the prayers, that's a priest. He's the priest of his household. He's the priest doing the work that needs to be done to help us to approach the holy God. It's a physical, tangible asset.
So then would each for Judah or the house of Judah to continue all this time suffering as they have, keeping the Torah for us at the end of this age? Is that what this is talking about? Because like you're kind of like Samba, you're kind of spiritualizing it a little bit. So because I'm looking for a physical asset here, I'm looking for a hardcore thing. Would that be the house of Judah?
Well, they
Keeping the
taught
Torah
me.
throughout. Yeah.
I can't raise my hand here, Joe, but I have something I think is pretty relevant.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I had never seen this, but if you look at the 2 verses before this, or start at Jeremiah 33:14.
14.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Wilson, read it.
Behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel and to the house of Yehudah. In those days and at that time I will cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land.
Okay, stop. In those days. When is those days?
Exactly. So
okay, so carry on then. That's the question I got.
and again, in 33:15, again it says, in those days and at that time I will, I'm sorry, I already read 16. That. Verse 16, in those days shall Yehudah be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell safely, and this wherewith shall she be called Jehovah our righteousness. And then it says, for thus saith Jehovah, David shall never want a man to sit upon the throne, the house of Israel. Then it goes into the priesthood. So to me, this looks like this is a promise after a point of restoration, not the time period we're in right now. I know that doesn't necessarily fit what we've thought.
So
but
you've just caught us taking cherry picking scriptures to fit our thinking.
And like I said, I hadn't seen this aspect myself.
I got to think on this some more. Is this talking about when King David is restored to the throne?
That's what it looks like to me.
And at that time, there shall always be someone to man the fires from that point on.
And that would fit with Ezekiel 44.
Yes, it
because
would.
Ezekiel 44 has David as the prince.
Context, yes.
Okay, so now I got to go back to 2 Samuel, where it says he'll always like have somebody on the throne. I can't use Jeremiah 33 no more.
I should throw in here that I just checked Strong's Concordance. Continually is an added word. There is no number for it. So that word has been added. So it needs to be, in my opinion, crossed out of the book. So it's just ends at the word sacrifice.
How come I haven't got mine italicized saying that that's correct?
Well, it's not italicized in mine either.
But it depends on who's
When I look under continually, it says Jeremiah 33:18, and that's the scripture we're dealing with, Jeremiah 33:18, but there's no number beside it.
Sombra, you use
So
that certain Bible that leaves off scriptures, aren't there? What do you have?
What verse?
Jeremiah 33, verse 18.
33:18, and the Levitical priest shall never lack a man in my presence to offer burnt offerings, to burn grain offerings, and to make sacrifices forever.
So you do have forever.
So it comes down to which original Hebrew text was used to do the translation. and which of those is actually the more accurate or the more historical, because things get left out, they don't get added. So as you're transcribing something, well, they do get added sometimes. If you're transcribing something, think about, you just transcribing. If you're going to write the Bible out yourself, you're going to transcribes. Oops, I made a mistake. Oops, I forgot a word. Oops, I read from the line above me. And those things exist. And when you have those things that exist, and we're using, let's say, the Masoretic text to translate a version of the Bible, but then we have a different text, original text, then sometimes that different original text either has a word that's different. Nehemiah Gordon teaches on this all the time about the difference of transcribing, and these transcribal errors are often written in the margins to tell us, oh, I made a mistake here, or oh, this shouldn't have been here. But which one is the more ancient, or which one is the more correct? I don't know. You're reading, Kurt's reading from KJV, which is an older version
of the new stuff.
What I have of the ESV is we found more text. We found more ancient documents. So now we're going to write the ESV version. Yes, Kurt. Kurt? Speak.
So I'm trying. I think. Am I?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'm on. Okay. So JPS, the Jewish Publication Society, for 18, I'll start in Jeremiah 18. Nor shall there ever be an end to the line. 17. Start in 17. Says the Lord, there shall never be an end to men of David's line who sit upon the throne of the house of Israel, nor shall there ever be an end to the line of the Levitical priests before me, of those who present burnt offerings and turn the meal offering to smoke and perform sacrifices.
That's exactly the definition. If you look up the Hebrew continually as defined, as noted in Leviticus, the one we're talking about.
So is Wilson correct that this is at the 7th millennium when King David is brought back? That, as it says in starting verse
It looks
14.
pretty plain to me.
Well,
It looks
Well, hang
fairly-
on, Glenn. Which looks plain? That this is for the 7th millennium, or that there should be Levitical priests right now running around?
No, that's
right now. This is a forever. This is a, never be an end. So that
Okay,
means
but
right from David's time till.
Did you read verse 14
whenever.
through?
I really think we ought to read through the rest of the chapter as well. There's about 5 or so more verses that might bring some clarity.
I think it's only during the times of the sacrifice, and it has to do with that perpetual sacrifice. So when the temple is in service, this will happen forever. It is not now, and so it won't happen. It'll happen again in David's day, coming. He did it then. It's going to happen again when he comes again.
Okay, Wilson, do you want to start up with verse 19 and read it? Do you mind?
Okay, sorry. Yep, I will. And the word of Yehovah came unto Yirmiyahu, saying, Thus says Yehovah, if you can break my covenant of the day and my covenant of the night, and that there should not be day and night in their season, then may also my covenant be broken with David my servant, that he should not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, my ministers. And the hosts of heaven cannot be numbered, as the host of heaven cannot be numbered, neither the sand of the sea measured. So I will multiply the seed of David my servant, and the Levites that minister unto me. Moreover, the word of Yehovah came unto Yirmiyahu, saying, Consider thou not what this people have spoken, saying, the two families which Jehovah hath chosen, he hath even cast them off? Thus they have despised my people, that they should be no more a nation before them. Thus says Jehovah, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinances of heaven and earth, then I will cast away the seed of Jacob and David my servant, so that I will not take any of his seed to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, for I will cause their captivity to return and have mercy upon them. So that last verse there, to me, this points to an end time, time of restoration, the time of the end of the captivity being brought back. And yes, it's an eternal covenant, but there's periods. It doesn't mean the lines are gone. The lines are still there for the Levitical priesthood, and the line of David are still here with us,
Verse
but they're
22.
just not out in the forefront right now.
As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, nor the sand of the sea measured, so will I multiply the descendants of David my servant, and the Levites who minister to me. So tell me if what I'm trying to figure out what Kurt's question, what he's asked here. If the Levites are still here and the royalty is still here, and there's another scripture that's coming to mind. Pardon me?
So,
Well, I see where you're going. Where if the royalty line is still here, and it says that the Levites are with the royalty, or not with, but it's in the same sentence.
Okay, so here's
Therefore, there must be Levites.
when I was starting to do, what got me involved in the Sabbath in the first place was me doing my family tree. And I traced them all the way back to the Celtic people, and I was able to do that by tribes. But then I got stopped because I didn't know the Celtics were the Cimmerians. And then from there, I was able to go back to Israel. At the same time, by name, I've traced them back into the 16, 15, 1300s, even the 900s. And the name is the name given to the high priest. Now that, okay, so you might argue with it. That's the McMasters or La Maestra. Where I'm going with this is, because it's one of the things I've tickled in my mind a number of times, that the teachers that we have today, Michael Rood, Nehemiah, Brad Scott, Mark Biltz, all of them, name all of them, are the descendants of Levi. Can I prove it? No. Is it true? I don't know. It's one of those thoughts that I've always tickled in my mind that it could be. And if that would be true, would that answer Kurt's question?
we may have a king and queen lineage that is serving in England, but this king and queen is not ruling and reigning in Jerusalem.
Exactly. They're in blood and in existence, just like maybe the Levitical priesthood. I mean, the Levites are, but their duty is not. They're not actually.
Right. There's nowhere
practicing
for them to serve.
So hang on, I missed part of what you're saying, Somber. Are you saying, okay, we got a king and queen in England, but we don't have we may have a Levitical lineage in Jerusalem, but no place to serve. Is that what you said?
Yes. Whereas the king and queen, or the king, the kingdom lineage ended up in England, still the same lineage, but they're not king and queen over England, over Jerusalem, over Israel.
That's because those damn Jews just won't submit to our king and queen, but we'll fix them at some point.
Joe.
Oh, this is being recorded? Oh.
Sometimes.
Wilson, you had your hand up there.
David is.
Well, I think for a few verses before as well, I put them over in
Before-
the chat here. I put a couple verses, 33, 7 and 8. They're over in the chat.
I'm sorry, I haven't got the chat open.
Okay. And it says, I will cause the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and I will build them as at the first, and I will cleanse them from all their iniquity whereby they have sinned against me, and I will pardon all their iniquities whereby they have sinned and whereby they have transgressed against me. And again, I don't believe this has happened, this perfect cleansing and the return of all Israel yet. So this is again pointing to a future event.
Okay, so Wilson, and I really appreciate you coming up with this, checking the whole chapter, not just one verse out of it. Again, still trying to answer Kurt's question, because now that's going to eat away at me.
I've been looking at
Is-
other things. So restate Kurt's question for me.
Well, just what in my brain, we're going to have Levitical priests, just from what I'm gathering here, we're going to have Levitical personnel, descendants, potentially me, potentially you, potentially everyone here that are going to teach, which is the job of the Levite. But we just don't have a temple to sacrifice in. But we do have a monarchy that has survived all this time that we can see. But these things are going to be brought back to Jerusalem with King David at a set time in the future. Is that a correct understanding of this? And Kurt's question is, if we got a king and queen right now, where's the Levitical priest?
Simply that, yeah. It says we have one and says we should have the other also, but where's the
Well,
other?
this is, we're just talking here, and I'm not set on this, but I have questions just because there's a monarchy in the line of, this was my point with Adonijah, right? So he was in the right line. His father was King David. He had a priesthood. He had all the right things, but it didn't mean that he was the rightful heir to the throne. And so I'm not arguing the heritage of the royal family. I just am not convinced that out of that line is going to be the righteous king. I'm actually, if David is going to be raised up here in a very short period of time, if you were correct on the calendar and whatnot, and I think you are, how this plays out exactly, I don't know, but I guess I'm not sure that this line is going to produce the righteous king to sit on the throne.
Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not saying that the righteous king is going to come out of the monarchy
I'm not trying to
England.
put words in your mouth. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm
No.
not saying that. I'm saying they are descendants of King David.
Okay.
At some point, that crown has to be given back to King David in our lifetimes.
Right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Prince George, he's just 5, 6, 7 years old right now. Is he going to be a righteous king? Who knows? Prince William, is he going to be right? Prince Charles? Okay. I don't know. I don't know what is in store for all of them. I just know that King David is going to be raised up. So that tells me he's not going to be born. He's going to be raised up.
Would there be a coronation?
Oh, I think there's going to be one big to do.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be doing King David, the
Will it
Jubilee
be
year, the start of the 7th millennium. Oh yeah, it's going to be big.
I'm just a question that comes to mind. Would it like the way it works today, basically the crown gets handed to the successor type thing?
Exactly.
So there's going to be, essentially, if it happened today, it would be Queen. The picture in my head is it would be the Queen Elizabeth takes the crown off her head and sticks it on David's head. So to
It could
speak.
could very well be like that, Kurt. Again, we don't all we have is speculation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay.
Well, we have this issue though of I don't see this peaceful transition of power. Everything that we're pointing to is going to be a serious mess. And so I think this placing the crown on King David's head very nicely in a period of peace, is it possible? It is. I just don't quite see that.
Well, that's a good point, Wilson. It could be a we're gonna bust into the what do you call that? The castle at Edinburgh, and they're gonna take the crown jewels, and somebody else is gonna put it on his head.
Well, if we're in the 2300 days of hell and 90% of Israel is destroyed, the monarchy is going to look much different than it does at this moment. And this,
you got to hang on. You got to remember, Jehovah is the God of order, and this is going to have to transpire on a world stage in a orderly manner. Yeah, there's going to be very few people left, more rare than the gold of Ophir. But Jehovah doesn't do anything secretly, and David's not going to be crowned secretly.
Oh, no.
This is going to be.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah. No,
I'm just saying that, for example, I mean, we had when Jeroboam and Rehoboam, the kingdoms were split. Theirs was not a peaceful, good times. There was war within the tribes, and that's what I'm getting at is.
I'm just saying, I don't know how it's going to go. You got to watch the monarchy. There's stuff. And in a war, the monarchy in Russia had to flee and some were killed. The monarchy in Greece, what happened to them? I think some of them were killed. The monarchy throughout Europe they're related, but they've been killed off in times of war.
Well, isn't Prince Philip, wasn't he third cousins to the Queen?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ella, go ahead.
Okay, maybe a silly comment or question, whatever, but the scripture says that David would not lack a king. What we have is a queen. So
yeah, we also got Prince Charles and Prince.
Right now we have a queen. That's what I'm saying. Right, we don't have a king.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I believe in my mind, it's the same thing. The royal family. We still have a king.
What's the chances that there's a hidden lineage out here we don't know about yet?
Well, we can trace my lineage back to Longshanks, King James, who defeated Robert the Bruce. I could be that heir, right? But again,
you'll be hung. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Scottish people don't like me for that. But anyway, I'm not distinguishing between Queen Elizabeth and a king here. I know what you're saying, Ella. The royal family is still there, still intact, and they can be traced right back to King David. I used to have the charts on the wall. I don't have them anymore. They're packed away, but I can still trace them back by name. So, okay. We have just a little time left. Do we want to read Genesis 32? Because I think it's a good chapter to read. At least get that part of the Torah portion done. Can I get a volunteer?
$32, you said?
Genesis 32, just the one chapter. We'll read it and discuss it. And
okay.
Yep.
Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." And so he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, in the country of Edom, instructing them, thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. And the messengers turned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. And there are 400 men with him. And then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, O God of my fathers, Abraham, and my God of Isaac, and O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of the steadfast love and all of the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offering as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And so he stayed there that night, and from what he had with me, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats, and 20 male goats, and 200 ewes, and 20 rams, and 30 milking camels, and their calves, 40 cows, and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. And these he handed over to the servants, every drove by itself. And he said to his servants, pass on ahead of me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he instructed the first, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? And then you shall say, these belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third, all who followed the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he thought, I may appease him with the presents that go ahead of me, and afterwards I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. And so the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose, and he took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And he took them, and he sent them across the stream, and everything else that he had. And yet Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. And when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. And then he said, let me go, for the day has broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and has prevailed. And then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there he blessed him. And so Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. And therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh.
Thank you. So one day I was shopping at where we used to get our meat, and I had my wife with me, and it's a Jewish store, and she wanted a certain type of roast and couldn't find one anywhere. There was every other kind of meat, but not the one she wanted. And she asked someone, where's the, I think it was a rump roast or something like that. And they looked at it like really weird. What, you don't know? I always remember this verse because of that. I'm not sure what the roast was. But I'm really glad we read this. What is it that we are, what is it, the theme? I always ask you, what's the theme that we're talking about? What's the theme today? What's the theme? What, Jacob, what did he send out? What are you saying? Division, somber? What's
Yeah,
that?
the division of the camp.
No. No, well, okay, you're, yeah,
It
but
is
no.
because it's Perez and Zerah, the division of the camp.
But he sent out loads of animals and divided them up and sent them ahead. It's respect. Respect for his brother's authority in the land. It's respect for King Philip, Prince Philip, and what he's done for the monarchy in the 73 years he's been married into that family. Respect.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning this, most of these teachings that we do are not planned. They're not, some parts I may do a little bit on, but it's respect. It's our respect for each other. I got King or His Royal Majesty Prince Kirk on my screen. His Royal Highness Prince Dean. His Royal Majesty Prince Wilson. His Royal Majesty Prince Glenn. His Royal Highness, Her Royal Highness Princess Sombra, Princess Ella, and whoever else, Marissa, Sherilyn. Do we talk to each other as though you're talking to Her Majesty the Queen? Do we treat each other with that respect? Even though Esau may have wanted to kill him, he still respected him enough to send him valuable gifts. You guys are called to be kings and queens. And I purposely leave that in the newsletter sometimes like that to remind me of who I'm talking to. Because sometimes you guys are really, I'm chewing my tongue off. I really can't.
Respect, remember?
Respect, yeah.
Respecting the office, even if the person sitting in the office is not respectable, you still respect the office. Therefore, you respect the person that was put in that office.
Precisely. Precisely.
And so even if the next king that comes after Queen Elizabeth is a wicked king, he is still the righteous king because he's of the righteous lineage. Even
He's
if
a
he's
king by the lineage, it doesn't matter if he's righteous or not. We
It's
still
the
have to
office
respect
he
that office.
holds. The
Yes.
office he holds, exactly. It's not about, he's not a people respecter of key persons. He's a respecter of the office that we hold, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay, but Kurt just wrote there's two kinds of respect for the office and respect for the man. Okay, but even if the king is wicked, you still bow before him because he sits
Exactly.
in the seat of the office, which is exactly what David did with Saul.
Yes, precisely. And that's
He
where I
knew
was
he
gonna
was
go.
anointed of God. He wasn't going to do something against God.
One of the scriptures we didn't read today was, and I chose not to, but it comes in now. I should have read it. Was the part when the Amalekite brings news to King David that King Saul and Jonathan are dead. Now the Amalekite obviously lied because he didn't kill them. The people King Saul were fighting killed them, and they found them the next day when they came to loot the bodies. But the Amalekite brought the news to David, said that he killed them in order to try and get a favor from King David. And what does David do?
Kills him.
Well, first of all David and all of his men tear their clothes and at the death of Saul. But the fact that this guy says that he killed Saul, then he was executed on the spot. Because what did David say? And I don't know what chapter that's in. It's First Kings or Last of Samuel, I forget. You didn't respect the office. You didn't fear the office of King Saul.
But didn't he kill him? Wasn't he wounded beyond any repair, and he was being merciful? Am I in the wrong place here?
Yeah, let's go. Does anyone know it's first? I want to say First Kings, but I'm not sure. So it's got to be Samuel.
First Samuel, chapter
What?
1 Samuel 31st,
First
Verse-
Samuel.
31st, verse 3.
First Samuel 31, verse 3. Now the Philistines, I'll start in verse 1. The Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. Now I've been to Mount Gilboa. It is very hard to fight on this mountain. There are boulders sticking up everywhere, and you got to sort of leap from boulder to boulder to get around. And to do a fight here would just be impossible. Then the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan. So the Philistines killed Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, Saul's sons. The battle became fierce against Saul. The archers hit him, and he was severely wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest the uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and abuse me." But his armor bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. He respected the office. Therefore, Saul took a sword and fell on it. Okay, that's what I remember. Okay, so where's the part where the guy comes to King David?
Next chapter of 2 Samuel chapter 1. It's just the story continues.
Verse 1?
Yep.
You want to read it, Wilson?
Shaul had died, and David had been 2 days in Ziklag after returning from the slaughter of the Amalekite. On the third day, there came a man from Shaul's camp with his clothes torn and earth on his head. He approached David, fell to the ground, and prostrated himself. David said to him, "Where are you coming from?" "I escaped from the camp of Israel," he replied. "Tell me, please, how did things go?" asked David. "The people have fled the battle," he answered, "and many of them are wounded or dead. Shaul and Jonathan, his son, are dead too." David asked the young man who had told him this, "How do you know that Shaul and Jonathan, his son, are dead?" The young man who had told him said, "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa when I saw Shaul leaning on his spear. The chariots and cavalry were bearing down on him. He looked behind him, saw me, and called to me. I answered, 'Here I am.' He said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered, 'I am Amalekite.' He said to me, 'I'm in agony and I'm going to die, but I'm still alive, so please stand next to me and kill me.' So I stood next to him and killed him because I was sure he was so badly wounded he couldn't live. I took the crown that was on his head and the bracelet on his arm and have brought them here to my lord." Then David took hold of his clothes and he tore them, and likewise all the men who were with him. They wailed and cried, and they fasted until evening for Shaul, for Jonathan his son, for Jehovah's people, and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. David said to the young man who had told him, "Where are you from?" He answered, "I am the son of a resident foreigner, an Amalekite." David asked him, "How is it you weren't afraid to raise your hand to destroy Jehovah's anointed?" David called one of his young men and said, "Go over and kill him." The man struck him down and he died. David said to him, your blood is on your own head. Your own mouth convicted you when you said, I killed Jehovah's anointed. Then David pronounced this lament over Shaul and Jonathan and his son in order to teach the people of Yehuda archery. There's some words here in.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
far enough. So David had many opportunities to kill Saul. He was in the cave when Saul was going to the washroom and cut off the corner of his garment. And even for that, David repented. David respected and honored the office that Saul had because it was given to him by Jehovah. We're to pray for our kings. We're to pray for our leaders. Not because they're smart, not because they're super righteous, or not because they're bad. We're to pray for them because that's the office Jehovah has given them. And respect, is something we all need to keep in mind when we think about these things. I'm not a big fan of Prime Minister Trudeau, and I have prayed for him, but he gets my dander going when I see him dancing in front of all these gay pride parades. And now, you wonder why our country's a mess. But I still respect him in the office that he holds. And I don't think, I sure hope that I've not cursed or prayed for a curse upon our prime minister. He holds an office given to him by Jehovah, and he gives us the rulers that we deserve, whether we like it or not. So Jacob here in Genesis 38 or 32 is respecting Esau. I don't know if is Esau a king? I suspect he is. Ruler of that territory that's been named after him, Edom. So he's respecting his kingship.
Many princes came from him.
Yeah. So if we get anything out of today's teaching, which is, again, I didn't plan on doing the funeral until I watched it this morning, and I kept jumping up. My wife said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm standing for a moment of silence." Well, nobody can see you. I said, "Yeah, but I can see me." So I stood for a moment of silence. Then I started pointing out all the different emblems that were all over the place, everywhere. The unicorn with a chain on it, representing Israel. The lion with a crown on it, representing the house of Judah. They're right there in the monarchy. The red lion on the beefeaters' uniforms, representing Zerah, the son of Tamar and Judah. The two lines coming together there. The respect that we need to show for our leadership, even though they may not fully understand who they are and what they represent. The same respect you give them is probably going to be the same respect that you get when you're king. I hope that the love and admiration that Queen Elizabeth has been given by the people is the same love and respect that each of you will get when you are kings and queens over the kingdoms that you're going to be given. So that's not an easy task. So I don't know. I'm starting to ramble on again. So I'm still thinking back to the funeral. It's a very simple funeral. COVID restrictions in effect. No crowds. Military parade. Just the simple things, the simple symbolic things of this funeral. Respect for a man who is not a king, but kept the queen. Kept the queen as his most important duty that he could do, to serve his queen, his wife. Anyway, I'll stop there. Anybody else want to make any more comments about the Genesis 32? The wrestling with God? I find that intriguing.
I
Kurt,
have something.
your Royal Highness, Kurt.
Yeah. Thanks, but I don't think I'm worthy at the moment.
You are worthy. Jehovah's called you to understand this stuff. He's called you at this time. You are worthy.
How could I be a humble king? I guess is what I'm saying. Thank you. Anyways, I find it interesting that he crossed at the Jabbok.
Yep.
Isn't that where they crossed into the promised land?
Yep.
So we've got two events at least that have happened at the same spot.
Yep. We got 3. It's also believed that that's where Yeshua crossed, because he came up to Gilgal after John the Baptist had his head chopped off. John the Baptist had his head chopped off in the Jordan, on the Jordan side by Herod, another Herod, and Yeshua came up to Gilgal, which is right there, just up the road, up the bank from the Jabbok.
Interesting.
And that is where they believe John the Baptist was actually doing his baptizing.
So where would that be from the spot that they say Jesus was baptized at? I was there.
I don't know where you were. There's a lot of places they say Jesus was baptized here, but
Well, straight east of Jericho.
no. You got to go north and go to the Jabbok River. Look on your map. Look where the Jabbok River is. Come slightly south of there, maybe a mile, maybe 2. And then you can cross the Jordan there, and you can see the ramp in which is going northwest from there, leading up, which will come out right at Gilgal. I forgot Argamon, which is the name of the town there now.
So you're saying the traditional spot, the tourist spot, let's say, of Jesus's baptism isn't the correct spot. Is that what you're saying?
Did that come out of my mouth? Of course, yes.
Okay, good enough.
In verse 30, it says that he saw him face to face.
I know.
And his life was preserved. So that goes against other scripture where it says that you can't see the face of Father and live. Right? But he saw him face to face in a way that was, I don't know. Apparently he was able to live from it.
Up close and personal, because you don't wrestle at a distance.
Well, oh yeah, he was eyeball to eyeball with him.
I just think that's amazing. I don't, but then Adam and Eve, they walked in the garden with Jehovah. Yeshua, if you understand Isaiah, Yeshua, Jehovah says there is no Yeshua except him. So I just think it's really cool. I don't have an explanation for it.
It's so easy to see that. It's amazing that many of the Jews don't see that. It's just very obvious. They are one, and that he was the Old Testament God.
If Christianity could see that and stop being the idiots that they are to the Jews, then maybe the Jews could see that he was their Messiah. But because Christianity is so ignorant and done away with the laws, any Messiah that does away with the laws can't be their Messiah. So that's the block that they have.
Christianity is hell bent on keeping Christmas.
Exactly. But then Judaism is hell bent on keeping Hanukkah.
Is that blasphemy?
What?
What you just said. If Christians could stop seeing that Jesus did away with the Torah,
In
Does
their
that-
eyes, it is.
then the Jews would recognize their Messiah. Is the very fact that Christians are presenting Jesus in a Greek mindset instead of a Hebraic mindset, is that blasphemy?
I don't know if I would call it blasphemy, but since up until Constantine, the Jews were converting by the thousands. Because up until that time, Jesus kept Passover at Passover. He kept the Shabbat. He kept the holy days in the proper season. It was after Constantine's edict that the Passover was changed to Easter, and Christmas got a foothold, and Torah was out on its way out the door. So it's a slow process. And then, all the attacks by Christians on Jews, because, they're those terrible people that killed our Messiah, that added to the separation. I believe, part of me believes that Jehovah allows these things or has these things happen in order to cause each of us to go and open up their Bibles and do our own research and to do our own meditations with him. Not to be like a monk, saying the rosary a gazillion times. It's to study his word. Same as what we're doing here. Kurt asked a question today. I don't got an answer for it. We kept looking. Wilson come up with an answer. Started read the whole chapter. Read it in its proper context. Okay, that I think might be the answer. But when you take away the Torah and you present this person as God who doesn't keep Torah, then how can they be your Messiah? How can we follow that? We now, last week's newsletter, there's a guy, maybe, might be being presented as Messiah. Wait for the Feast of Trumpets. Let's see what happens to this guy at the Feast of Trumpets. He's keeping Torah. He's Jewish. He knows Kabbalah. He knows all the different things. But he hasn't died yet. So is he coming as a lamb or as the Messiah ben David or Messiah ben Joseph? So they're still wrestling with those things.
I haven't heard a shout or a shofar either, just to point that out.
What do you mean you haven't heard a shout or a shofar?
Before he came. Because isn't that when the Messiah is coming, with the shout and a shofar and the blowing of the horn?
That's the announcement to be made on the Feast of Trumpets. Will you be listening then?
They don't know that. They don't know what the trumpets means.
It's the Feast of, it's the Feast of Shouting. They're going to have trumpets. That could be the day he's announced. We don't know. There's a lot of different things. They do have a lot of, but anyway, get back to what Somber said. I don't think it's blasphemy to say that or to think that. If Judah were to know, then there's Jews, one for Israel, I think, is presenting Yeshua as keeping the Torah. And by doing that, Jews are realizing that he is their Messiah. So they're doing good that way. These Jews for Jesus, if they're presenting Jesus as a Christian, they're doing a disservice. They're driving them away. You guys, by keeping Torah, you're just keeping Sabbath. You're keeping the holy days. You're doing it by the barley being Aviv. You're doing it by the wheat, which is right now. You guys, by your examples, are setting, well, hey, I got on the bus one day and the guy asked me what I was doing. He thought I was a Christian. And then he seen my tzitzits, and then he started asking more questions. And when I told him that Yeshua, Jesus, was Jewish and kept the Torah, he stopped talking to me like I was some Christian pagan and started talking to me like a brother. And we had a great conversation for the rest of that bus ride. They already believe in Yeshua, but they're tripping over this fact that he keeps Sunday and Christmas. And we need more people out there saying, no, he was Jewish. He kept Torah. And we need less Christians saying, no, he kept Easter Sunday. Anyway, these are things that you guys got to start telling people and sharing with them so that they hear more from you all, from all of us. Well, Randy, have you got someone for closing prayer?
Yes, sir, we do. Brother Dean.
Brother Dean, go ahead, Your Royal Highness.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Your Majesty, Royal Highness. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your feast, for your Shabbats. It's amazing how great these Shabbats are. And just, I've only been doing this a year, but we are grateful, Father. And so excited about tomorrow, Shabbat, and the teachings that we'll have. And please be with everybody and prepare us for that, for tomorrow, Father. In Yeshua's holy name we pray, and in his authority. Amen.
Amen. And in case you're listening to this tonight, if I get it out there tonight, tomorrow we're going to be starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time zone. And the afternoon will be 2 p.m. I was going to say 2 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern time zone. You're welcome to join us. And it's the High Holy Day, Shavuot. And yeah, it's on Sunday. So you're welcome. And again, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe in the button below and join us. Join us some Sabbath and enjoy. We're going to continue on here afterwards for a little bit. And you're more than welcome to talk, ask questions, and we got a whole lot of people that can give you the answer. But until tomorrow, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, everyone.